Hi everyone, here's the second part of the second video to the Intro to Trig Booklet. This guy right here. And today we're going to be talking about solving for missing sides of a right triangle and solving for missing angles of a right triangle. So two fairly quick things, two easy T-charts to follow. You're going to need to make sure you have your calculator. Okay, it's a good scientific calculator. Something like this. Okay, you need to be in degree mode in your calculator. If you look up at the top, you'll see a rad, a deg, and a grad. Little buttons for this particular type of calculator here. You shuffle through them with this button right there, the DRG button. So we're going to only be working in degree mode this year, and but in grade 12 we work in radian mode as well. And so just make sure you have your calculator, make sure it's in scientific notation, a scientific calculator, and make sure it's in degree mode. If you don't know how to do that, consult your manual, Google it online, find out how to do it, because if you have it in the wrong mode, your numbers are going to not make any sense. Okay, so degree mode, very important. Okay, so let's get started with solving for missing sides. Okay everybody, so I just wrote up SOHCAHTOA up here, right, up here, and we have a triangle here with one side at 8 and an angle of 53 degrees, and I want to know the hypotenuse of that triangle. So let's go through the process to do this. Now there are other ways to do it, and depending on which method you like, but I'm going to show you a way that works all the time, and if you know of a different method or a different way to go about doing it, then please do so. Alright, but let's have a look at the T-chart. Alright, job number one is we need to choose between sine, cosine, or tangent. And so we have to start from the angle that we know, this angle down here. And we have to ask ourselves, which part of the triangles do we have? And is the 8 the opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse from this angle here? Well, it is the adjacent. So adjacent. And is the x the opposite and adjacent or hypotenuse? Well, it's right across from the 90 over here, so that makes it the hypotenuse. So I'll just write HYP for hypotenuse. And so that requires us to go to... Oops, sorry, camera. Sorry about that. So that requires us to go to the SOHCAHTOA up here, and remember, so sine, S, is opposite and hypotenuse. So that's not us, this is adjacent and hypotenuse. So it's not sine, so for sine. Cosine, is adjacent and hypotenuse. Is that what we have? We have adjacent and hypotenuse, yep, so we're going to be using a cosine. Alright. Cosine. Okay, so let's see where this takes us. Okay, so the next part is the algebra setup. And so I have cosine because we chose that. And then I have adjacent over hypotenuse because that's what cosine is up here. Ca is our way to remember cosine. So the adjacent is 8 and the hypotenuse is x. So in these spots over here, I have 8 and I have x. Okay, so let's have a look and see what that looks like. Okay, so the next step is to start solving for x. We're right over here, and so I got to go to my calculator and I got to calculate the value for cosine 53. And depending on what one calculator is, versus it depends whether you hit the cosine first or the cosine second, but you should get a value of 0.601. That's what your calculator should say. If it doesn't, then you're either plugging the numbers in wrong, so reorder, either do, if you did cosine first, maybe do cosine second or whatever, or you have it in a different degree mode. It could be like in radians or gradients. So make sure you know how to change that into degree mode. I can't come through the screen there and get you and point it out on your calculator. You're going to have to sort that out for yourself. Look it up on YouTube, whatever. If you've got a Texas Instrument or crazy whatever type of calculator, then just look it up and find out how to go into degree mode. I'm sure there's a quick YouTube video to sort that out. Okay, so now I have to solve for x, and this one is a little bit of a problem because The x is on the bottom of the fraction, right? The x is on the bottom. So I have, to remember Mr. Dewick's famous swappy dance, where we can kind of change these, the x and the 0.601, it can change their positions when you have it on the bottom. So let's have a look at that. There's a bunch of ways to solve it. Let's get the answer. Okay, so there it is up at the top here. I got x is equal to 8 divided by 0.601, which gives us 13.3 repeating, or something very close to that. So when x is on the bottom of the fraction, you do your little swappy dance over here. But when x is on the top of the fraction, it's a little bit different. So I'm just going to change the numbers up around. You can see what happens when x is on top. Okay, so for this one I just did this, I just changed the 8 and the x up. I just kept everything the same. And so when I'm setting up my algebra over here, the adjacent is going to be x and the hypotenuse is going to be h. So the x will be on top. I get x over 8. Right, it looks like that, x over 8. So then you do the cos 53 again, which is 0.601. Okay, and x is on top, so that's a nice easy one to do, right? You just multiply both sides by 8. Okay, so I got x is equal to 4.81 or thereabouts. So when x is on top, that's nice and easy. When x is on bottom, you got to do the little swappy dance. And those are the two little details you have to sort out. So just review, right? You got to choose sine, cosine, or tangent depending on the information of the triangle that you have. You have to write out the algebra, right? The more you do, the faster you get at it. And then you have to wind up solving the algebra for x. And sometimes x is on top, which is easy. Sometimes x is on the bottom, which is not so much. Or you got to do an extra little step to solve that. No big deal. Go ahead and do those tricks. Okay, so the next and last part is about solving for a missing angle, and this is really where trigonometry takes off. Yeah, we can solve for missing sides, and that's fine. And there are other little details that you can do, but solving for missing angles is where we really go to the next level in trigonometry, and we'll take you there hopefully by the end of the year. Okay, so here's an example where I'm asking you to solve for a missing angle. This missing angle right up here. And so the first step is always the same, right? Figure out whether you're using sine, cosine, or tangent. So which one is it, folks? Is it sine, is it cosine, or is it tangent? Well, here's the angle, right, down here. This is the opposite of that angle. Okay, so I have O for opposite. And this here, this 9, is that the hypotenuse? No, the hypotenuse is across from the 90. So this is the hypotenuse. So we don't have the hypotenuse. So the only other one that's out there is the adjacent. And that's what that one is. It's the adjacent. So I have O for opposite, and I have A for adjacent. So sine, OH, no, I don't have the H, so it's not sine. Cos, so adjacent, yep. Hypotenuse, nope, so it can't be cos. Tangent, let's see, opposite, yes. Adjacent, yes, so it's got to be tangent. There you go. So we're going to use tangent. And now we have to set up the algebra. Well, what the heck does the algebra look like? This is where we're going to do some fancy shenanigans. So I know we're using tangent, right? And so I say the tangent of the angle, because you can only take tangents of angles or sines of angles. So tangent of some angle, that's what we want to find out, angle x. That's a little angle sign, by the way. Okay, so equals the opposite over adjacent. And I just fill in what I know, right? I have the opposite of 5 and the adjacent of 9. So I just fill in that fraction, and then I have to work to solve that. And this is where it gets like a little bit cheeky. Okay, so I do 5 divided by 9 on my calculator. I get 0.5 repeating. And I get the tangent of x, or tan x, is equal to 0.5 repeating. So now I have to find a way to get x isolated, right? Algebra is isolate, and so what do I gotta do? Well, I gotta cancel tangent. Well, how do you cancel tangent? Do you divide by tangent? No, don't divide by tangent, because tangent is not a number. You can take the tangent of a number and get a number, but tangent by itself is not a number. It's a function, for whatever that's worth for right now. So I got to be able to cancel out tangent. And in order to do that, I need to use, not sine to the negative 1. What's going on? Yeah, we use tangent to the negative 1 to cancel out tangent. Let's see what that looks like. So I just write tangent to the negative 1 on both sides. I kind of ran out of room. It should be like right beside it. But I'm going to write tangent to the negative 1 on both sides of the equation. And what happens is, over here, these guys cancel. And I got to calculate that. This leaves me with x. And I got to calculate the tangent of 0.5 repeating. So the so x is equal to the tangent of 0.5 repeating. Tangent to the negative 1 of 0.5 repeating. Right? That's what I got to be able to get. So on the calculator, how do you do that? Well, you got to use your second function buttons. On this calculator here, right, this guy right there, tangent, right there is that's tangent. And if you look right above it, I've got this tangent to the negative 1. Now, you have your own calculator. I don't know, it's kind of hard to see. But it's got tangent to the negative 1. There's tangent, and right above it in yellow is tangent to the negative 1. I know it's kind of blurry. But you have your own. And it's just basically the shift function of the second function of wherever your sine, cosine, or tangent buttons are. So to take that in, depending on your calculator, I'll go shift tangent to get the tangent to the negative 1, and then I have to plug in the decimal, 0.5 repeating. Okay, so let's do that, and you do yours and I'll do mine. What did you get? I got 29.1. That's what I got on mine. So I went inverse tangent or shift tangent to the 0.5. Now, again, right, some calculators you put the shift tangent in first, some you do it second, so make sure you know how to get 29.1. Okay, so the last 2 pages of that booklet are these jobs. Solving for missing sides and solving for missing angles. And I know they're the joke pages and they're kind of dumb a little bit. What can I do? But that's the job that you're doing. Get good at finding a missing side, get good at finding a missing angle, and that's the main job. That's getting started with trig. Right? Next class we're going to look at triangles that are not right angled and how we can deal with those. And then we'll eventually get to, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll get to something called polar coordinates, which is pretty freaky, and that's where we take triangles and we turn them into circles. Yeah, it's awesome. Alright guys, take care. See ya.